Back in volume 1, we had a look at standing and stacking and how important that is in terms of breathing well. So we looked at how the feet work and how the feet, how to operate really good feet. We'll have a look at the feet later as well, but how the feet work and how the pelvis needs to be over the centers of the feet. We looked at the angles of the pelvis in terms of posterior, anterior rotation or any shift from side to side. We had a look at the belly over the pelvis and the chest over the belly and the head over the chest. So this sense of vertical alignment, of good posture, basically. Again, not a military posture, but a responsive, reflexive, gravitationally intelligent posture. Because what that does is allow our body to breathe well. Now, when we go into complex trauma-based responses, a number of things can happen with the breathing, for example. So we've looked at how people can hyperinflate. They can come up and push up here. Yeah? They can push their pelvis back, push their chest up. They can change the angle of the pelvis, tuck the pelvis backwards, squeeze the femurs inwards to protect the genital area. Sometimes people go into a sway back where the lumbar spine is pushed forwards. So there's a range of postural variations that people do in response to intensity. And all of those can change then the way we breathe. And if we're changing the way we're breathing, we're changing our physiology, and then we're changing our psychology as well again, all right? So if somebody goes into a freeze response at the end of the exhale, that's often associated, not always, but often associated with a spinal flexion, which might push the shoulders forwards and the head forward. And again, that's going to impact breathing. So looking at how posture impacts breathing, and we can help people gradually over time change that posture to come into this centered, stacking feeling is really important. One of the qualities in this is being centered. And a little game we can play with ourselves is place the feet so they're relatively parallel. That's the midpoint of the heel through the second toe, parallel-ish, depending on the position somebody's body's used to. And then from there, find that stacking of the head above the chest, chest above the belly, belly above the pelvis, pelvis above the feet. And keeping that, just move from side to side, gently breathing, this gentle swaying from side to side, and find out where and how it feels to do this. And then backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. And then make a circle going around, back to one side, forwards to the other side. A couple of times round, and then the other way. And then find yourself into the center. And get a really good reference feeling of the center. So you're practicing being centered. What does it feel like to feel centered and grounded? Stacking well, centered and grounded. It's very useful to have this embodied reference position of feeling. Because again, if we have a body history, body biography of complex emotional intensity and the patterns that can go with that, then having a reference experience of what it feels like to be centered and grounded is really important. It's quite useful to create an anchor for that as well. An anchor is a physical reminder. So something like, I'm going to use this one where I'm tucking my thumb into my palm and just wrapping my fingers around like that. So I can, when I'm doing that, I've got a physical anchor. So if I find myself in a really difficult position where my body wants to run away, yeah, where I'm feeling threatened in some way, my trauma is being triggered in some way by the situations that are happening, what I can do is remind myself of that position with a physical anchor. So I can just go like that and pull myself consciously back into the centering and grounding. That's really interesting because we look at the psychology of posture and we find that women who, there was some research done on women who are practicing a particular style of yoga, who were inhabiting a really strong, tall posture, and they were seen as more powerful and more capable in their executive positions. So posture tells people something about you. So if I go into a position where my head's forward and I'm slumped like this, that's communication with people, right? If I hyperinflate, and come forward and do something else here, or if I turn my feet out and push into a different position. It's communication. It's non-verbal communication. So having a position that is centered and grounded and stacked well, where I have an anchor here, where I can hold and remember that position in complexity. So if I feel my body going into some habitual fear-based response, I can remember, oh yes, centering, grounding, there it is. And that then changes the situation because the communication I'm emanating is now different. So it's a very useful little practice, just centering, grounding, anchor it, and practice it to begin to inhabit it in complex situations. So if we're working with somebody who's been through some complex traumatic difficulties, again, we can help them find positions in their body of centering and grounding and stacking really well, and then breathing well in that. So just standing, we want the breath to be aware and nasal and low and slow. Nothing else is needed in standing but aware, nasal, low and slow. It's a functional mammalian breathing. So centering, grounding, stacking, anchored, functional mammalian breathing. And that pulls me out of whatever else may be going on into this present moment of the body. So I'm coming out of any complexity into this present moment of the body. And that's a profound and beautiful practice to gift people, to help them step forward in their life in a much more powerful way.